Yeah, and let's talk. We've talked about a couple of the churches already. I want to go to Pergamum, okay, Ron? And this is the compromising church. And the Lord said, these things, says he who has the sharp two-edged sword, talking about Jesus, I know your works. And we've hit this last week, but we're going to talk about it again. Everybody that's a Christian, you need to realize what Jesus is saying about he handles churches. Number one, he comes to every church every Sunday. Number two is he knows every member and what they've done. He knows what you've done. He says, I know your works. I know where you live. He actually knows what you think. Okay? And he says to this church, I know your works and where you dwell. And then he says, you're dwelling right next to Satan's throne. What does Satan's throne mean here?
Well, I think it can mean a couple of things. I think, first of all, Roman worship, emperor worship, was very common in this part of the world. This involved a requirement by the Romans that everybody say Caesar is Lord. And if you didn't say that Caesar is Lord, then you were persecuted or executed. But I think even more to the point, I think that probably the big giant altar to Zeus was probably the throne of Satan. This is a giant false deity there. And you know, the text goes on to indicate that even though this church did some things right, they morally compromised. And that lets us know that today, moral compromise is not okay.
Let me tell you a few of the things he says, okay? First of all, he says, you guys were faithful even in the days when Antipas, my faithful martyr, was killed among you. Let's first of all talk about the good guys here. Who was Antipas?
Antipas was ordained by John the Apostle to be the bishop at Pergamum during the reign of the Roman Emperor Domitian. And he was executed apparently by being put inside a brass bowl, and then that brass bowl was put over some flames. So he literally baked to death. It was a very cruel way of execution.
And they watched that, and they were still faithful then. But then after saying you were faithful then, things seem to have changed or slipped a bit.
Yes.
He says, I have a few things against you because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam. God hates false doctrine. Let's not be wishy-washy about this. God says, I hate this doctrine. But what is the doctrine of Balaam?
Well, the text goes on to define it for us. It says, I have a few things against you because you have there those who hold to the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols and to commit sexual immorality. So basically, this individual got a bunch of Moabite women to seduce the Israelite men into intermarriage. And that was a great violation of God's will. So this was a moral compromise here.
Then he says, those you also have, you hold to the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which things I hate. Here's another one of the false doctrines he hates, but who are the Nicolaitans?
Well, the Nicolaitans, there's been a lot of discussion among scholars, and they have some different opinions. My take on it is that this is a school of thought that basically involves a great deal of Christian license in conduct. There's a lot of self-gratification. There's a lot of indulgence. There's a lot of loose living. There's a lot of sexual immorality. So right here, you've got both teachings emphasizing some aspect of sexual immorality. And you don't like to think about that being in a Christian church, but here it is. These are people who were known for standing for the name of Christ, but yet they fell into sexual immorality. And to me, that is a huge warning for the church today.